Hi, it's Robert Schwemmer. Today we're going to do a story on an abandoned rail and rail yard. Behind me is the former Southern Pacific Railroad's yard called the Taylor Yard, which actually was named for a gentleman that had a feed mill here in town and a grocery. That was T. Hartley Taylor. He was quite the entrepreneur. But in 1911, Southern Pacific Railway bought the property and developed it, and it was actually here through 1985. It's kind of a switch yard, repair facilities for both locomotives and box cars, and it had a turntable and roundhouse. And although those structures are long gone, I was actually able to capture that footprint of where those facilities were. Got the drone up in the air here and took kind of a scan over, but I'll compare that to the historic images. And we can also share, next you might hear the river and Canada geese in the background, but the Los Angeles River that's been flowing for thousands and thousands of years used to be, of course, a natural river all earth. And at some point, probably around the 1940s, they concreted it in. And so I have photos of the yard prior to the conversion to make more of a flood control facility. But it's a natural river. It's got ducks all over. And behind me is a beautiful bridge. And right now, passing off to my left, is the metro train. And a little bit earlier, a freight train went by. So very active track over here. On my left, I don't know, probably you can hear the train, but you won't be able to see it. But I did get a little footage from the drone, so we'll check that out later. But let's go take a journey back in history. To give you context to where the Southern Pacific Railroad Company's Taylor Yard is, you notice the northern boundary and southern boundary shown here on the Google map. But there's a lot of confusion with historic images. They're credited to the Taylor Yard, but they're actually Southern Pacific's River Station Yard and Depot. And that particular location is confused, I think, because it also parallels the Los Angeles River. But it's much closer to the city of LA and the Union Station in Los Angeles. And here's a closer view, historic image of the Southern Pacific Taylor Yard, circa 1930s, and then in the right, a more modern Google map overlay. The area that's abandoned remains, that's what we're gonna focus on with the footage I shot with the drone. That is the abandoned rails. Notice in this image, the wild and untamed Los Angeles River. I'm sure the Taylor Yard dealt with a lot of flooding and erosion. But fortunately, the flood channel was started in 1938 and completed by 1960. The project formed a 51-mile engineered waterway that flowed, of course, into the Pacific Ocean at Long Beach. The 247-acre Taylor Yard was established in 1911, completed in 1925, with modifications in 1949. This full-service railroad hump yard and freight switching facility at one time oversaw the classification of 2,900 freight cars daily. The Los Angeles General Shops were one of Southern Pacific's major shop facilities, though not as large as the mammoth Sacramento shops. They played a crucial role in maintaining and repairing equipment for the railroad's extensive operations in Southern California and beyond. At its peak in 1985, the Los Angeles Times newspaper reported the yard's track totaled around 500 miles. According to the publication Railway Age, circa 1949, the first completely equipped shop on the Southern Pacific lines for maintenance of diesel-electric road locomotives was at this Taylor Yard. In the 1950s, the yard employed some 5,000 workers, mostly locals, and by 1983 was down to 1,200 workers. I particularly enjoy this photograph. The hump master watches the night parade of freight cars cascading down the tracks at the Taylor Yard. During my childhood, a good friend of the family, Ray Kerry, was one of the hump masters in the early 60s. Dennis Albertson stated he worked at the Taylor Yard at various duties in the shop between 1963 and 1983. He was also a switchman and a CRO, or car retarder operator, at the hump, which he switched cars from the intake A yard to the classification B yard. There were 3 towers, A and B. The A tower was the hardest to master because he had to handle each and every car, empties and loaded, mixed, at 3 to 4 cars per minute. He said it was a real trick to run. Shout out to David Luxtig. Great photography and captions. Well, let's go explore from the air. First one that spots a foundation that they recognize, yell it out. The southern part of the Taylor Yard is now occupied by the Metrolink's Central Maintenance Facility. This facility provides a critical function for Metrolink as a service, inspection, and repair facility that can handle heavy maintenance and repair. Following early morning peak runs, nearly all Metrolink trains arrive at the facility to be inspected, tested, fueled, and cleaned in service for the afternoon departures. Although what is left of the Southern Pacific Railroad Company's Taylor Yard is just a sliver of the original 247-acre site, but there are plans to develop the 42-acre property that will retain its historic roots. The parcel of land I flew over was purchased by the City of Los Angeles in March 2017 with the goal of developing a park space, walking trails, wetlands, wildlife habitat, and a river access. Of course, any hazmat materials in the ground still need to be addressed. There are many different ideas of how to develop the Taylor Yard Park, but of course, I personally like the idea of a turntable in the park. Well, I sure hope you enjoyed this visit to the abandoned rails of the Southern Pacific Railroad Company's Taylor Yard. I know there are a lot of people out there, because the yard was in existence to 1985, that have their own stories to share. But this has been fun to put this together. The fact that it's in my own backyard. Once again, thank you to my loyal subscribers, and wow, my many hundreds of new subscribers in the last week. Thank you for that. And if you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing, where we explore above and below the sea and from the air. Thank you.